ready. Hello guys, I'm back with another. It's been long without me reading, and I've been trying to make videos, but I've been doubting myself, like, should I make the video or should I not? Like, but today I'm back. I want to read this book for full 10 minutes straight. So I'm about to start. One. In the beginning, it was the 18th birthday when I walked into the recruiting office and volunteered for flying duties with the Royal Air Force. Bomber Command had already been fighting a lonely, bitter war against Germany for over 2 years and was, at that time, going through a bad patch. Aircraft losses were mounting and results were disappointing. In Britain, many powerful voices were murmuring that the money lavished on the bomber offensive could be better spent elsewhere in the pursuit of victory. I, of course, like the rest of British public, knew nothing of these political undercurrents. Most of us who were to fly in the 4-engine heavies, the Lancasters and Halifaxes that sustained the great onslaught against the enemy in the later years of the war, were either still at school or starting out on our first jobs. When war was declared against Germany on 3rd September 1939. Yet from that very first day of hostilities, crews were climbing into their slab-sided mad black Armstrong Whiteley, while others struggled to board the less cumbersome but unbelievably cramped Hagley Page Hamptons with fuselages only 3 feet across at the widest point. Luckiest from the south point of flying the best RAF bomber then available were those crews who managed the remarkable Vickers Wellington. Basically, it was metal and wood basket covered in canvas. It was everything that a warplane should be: strong, reliable, able to absorb untold punishment, and regarded with real affection by the men who flew in her. They nicknamed her a Wimpy. Designed by Benz Willis, the genius whose name is irrevocably linked with Bomber Command. The Wimpy was the only aircraft among those early bombers to be still on active service at the end of the war. This trio of twin-engine bombers, pitifully lacking in defensive armament, painfully slow yet remarkably rugged, was the main stay of Bomber Command's offensive against Germany in the early years of war. In the beginning, they were crewed by men who had been flying their carrier in peacetime RAF. The training they had received had ill prepared them for the arduous duties that lay ahead, especially in the essential skills of navigation by night. These professional airmen alone carried the war to the doorstep of the enemy. From among the few survivors of that era emerged the leaders of the many who were to fall. Understanding flyers including Guy Gibson of them, Buster Fay, Leonard Chisaya, who won his Victoria Cross numerous acts of supreme courage rather than a single incident, and Don Bennett, leader of Pathfinder Force, as a superb pilot and brilliant navigator. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the American president, had appealed to all European nations to refrain from unrestricted aerial warfare on civilian populations or unfortified towns. Britain, in her immediate reply to the president, had promised that indiscriminate attack of civilian populations as such will never form part of our policy. Undoubtedly, this was sincerely meant at the end. This was sincerely meant at the time, but in the light of what was to happen as the war progressed, no statement could have presaged a more bitter irony. Even so, as darkness fell on that first night of war, 10 Whiteleys from 51st Squadron and 7 from 58th Squadron took off from their grass runways and set course to the east. The Whiteley was the only RAF bomber specially designed to fly at night. The crew had been trained accordingly, but under conditions of peace, when it was comparatively simple to navigate from one well-lit town to another while flying over home territory. It is remarkable in the light of later operational strategy that these poor old kitties, pushing their way through the night of all 120 miles per hour, visited between them Hamburg, Bremen, and no less than 9 other countries in the RAR during the course of that one mission. Of course, they did not drop a single bomb on the Germans. Instead, they rained down 5.5 million fleets. Marshal of Royal Air Force Sir Arthur Harris, whose name is synonymous with Bomber Command, spoke for many in the RAF, particularly those AIRCREW who had to risk their life dropping these bites of paper. In the earlier stage of the war, where of the war, we were not allowed to bomb anything on land, and our only possible targets were therefore warships, which we could attack only by day. Our where was I? Our losses from enemy fighters and flank were prohibitive, and we therefore decided before we had done ourselves or the enemy much harm. Meanwhile, the Whiteleys and Hampdens were put on the questionable employ of dropping pamphlets all over Europe, a game in which we never had the slightest faith. My personal view in that the only thing achieved was largely to supply continents' requirements of toilet paper for the 5 long years of war.